Hello, everybody. This is Faris.
And this is Caleb Flournoy, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Homecare Guyz.
Caleb, what's going on, brother? How's it going, man?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm doing pretty good today. I'm doing really good. Faris, I know we have a great discussion today.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited. But how was your week? Let's start off with how was your weekend? What did you get done this weekend?
Man, so this weekend was was Lena's birthday weekend. So man, our daughter turned 6 years old, and so she had an amazing birthday party at this little jump park. Man, I wish we had some of those when we were younger. I mean, good guys, these kids, they have everything now. Like the worst thing we did was, you remember our neighbor Jay used to have a trampoline, right? Going over to jail, the thing back then was to do not fall off the trampoline and break your arm. And now these kids have a full-fledged trampoline park, man. It's crazy.
So I went, I came there to actually see my niece for her birthday. This is my first time actually going to a trampoline park. And I just saw all these kids. I'm like, oh my goodness. They were just bouncing and jumping everywhere. And they had other activities besides the trampoline. They had like things that you can kind of like, they had little balls, like little obstacle course. They had like little things that you can kind of like bounce the person off the balance beam. It was really, really neat.
And like a little American Ninja Warrior type thing.
Right. And it seemed like Lena had a great time, especially with her cake. Her cake was awesome. Who made the cake, Faris?
Oh, don't get me the line. It's an amazing cake decorated. I wish I could remember her name so we could shout her out. Yeah. But man, she did an amazing job. This cake was beautiful,
and
bro.
It was a glow up cake, so it glowed up in the dark. I'm like, I never even knew they made frosting like that, or
crazy.
Any kind of that was a really good cake.
The cake was good, man.
4-layer cake. I didn't get a chance to eat any of the cake because I'm trying to watch my diet. But it looks great. They look like they had a great time. The kids,
man, they did, man. It was funny. Our little man went to sleep. He passed out on the way home. He like the sleep monster just got him a few times. He was gone, but Lena enjoyed herself, and we were thankful for all her friends and the family that came out to support. But amazing daughter. So shout out Lena. Happy 6th birthday. Looking forward to having many more.
My niece.
Yes.
Lena Bina. Love you.
Perfect.
Well, Faris, let's talk about like just our discussion today, man. Our conversation today. We talk about it so often. We do this formality so often, and we ask, "How are you?"
Yeah.
And so, "How are you?" is a formality that I typically do. Just to, my mom always taught us, whenever you go in a room, you say hello and you say, "How are you doing?" And so I did not really realize how important. To listen to the response of what the person is saying. And so we're going to dive into that today, Faris.
Yeah, man. And like I said, it's so important. I know we kind of talked about this off camera. It's so important to kind of be in the moment, because that is a powerful question. Right. And so many times we ask a person how they're doing, and it's almost like in passing. How you doing? Good. Keep going. And the expectation is very low tax to have a conversation.
I do that all the time. Yeah. I do. When people say, "How are you?" I'm good. I'm well. Everything's good. And then deep down inside, there's like, maybe a situation that I'm dealing with that I just don't want them to be aware of, or I'm stressed out at work, or I'm stressed out at home. There's different things that I'm dealing with. Yeah. But we just do that all the time. How are you? And we just say, "I'm doing well," and keep going.
Man, I found myself doing that even this morning as we were talking, brother. Like, I got to work, and in passing, I was asking the young lady, I was heading to the shredder, and I asked the young lady, I'm like, "How you doing?" with the intention on getting to the shredder. Like, I made the shredder more important than the conversation. Wow. And she actually started talking about, she was like, I'm doing well. And so she had some other things to say, and I had to catch myself to say, stop here. Forget the shredder, go back to the conversation, because she's important. Right. And we had maybe a 3 to 5 minute conversation, but I realized at that moment that was a habit that so many of us have, is how you doing? Keep going instead of being in the moment, bro.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you one thing too, Faris. I don't think that the mask is another layer to it, because you can see a lot by people's faces, and so by us being in COVID, the mask is another layer. And so when someone says, "How are you doing?" we can't really see their whole face. The only thing you mainly see in their eyes, and Lord forbid if they have a hat. Exactly. So it's like you're covering yourself, and so really and truly, that "How are you?" I think now is the most important time. Now is for us to really ask, "How are you?" and look for another response, and then ask the person. That's what I typically do now, and we'll go into it. I'm just jumping in. Typically go into and say, "Well, what does that look like for you?" When you say, "I'm doing well," well, what does well look like?
Exactly.
I want to know you. I want to know what you're saying. Exactly. What is good?
And just like I said with the mask thing, a buddy of mine, we were talking earlier, and he said, do your eyes say the same thing that your mouth is saying? Ooh. Because so many times our mouth is saying good, but our eyes are showing another emotion. They're showing sadness. Our eyes are showing worry or anxiety. Right. So the question, how you're doing, is such a deep question. And I think this right here kind of is very timing, because over the weekend and in the last week or so, we've had a few high profile deaths by suicide. Right. And it was my question. I bet you so many times people ask, and I can imagine them getting on the phone with their loved ones. How you doing, baby? I'm good. How you doing? I'm good. But in all actuality, of course, with the results of suicide, they were not good. Right. And that's why one of the ladies I read about was let me go back to her name.
Yeah, you some of the former USA?
Former Miss USA. What's her name?
Chelsea Chris.
Chelsea Chris, exactly. 30 years old, from the outside
beautiful.
From the outside looking in. Lady. Just the beautiful. She was working on Extra as a personality. Right. She was an attorney working social justice issues. Right. Just a lot of things going for her.
On the outside, it looks like she had everything going on.
Everything going on.
She had a good career. Mm-hmm. She was beautiful. Mm-hmm. She was popular. Mm-hmm. She was, in the media. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just imagine how many times people came up to her and asked her, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. But she was not well inside.
But you know what, Faris, that tells me that's like an internal issue. Mm. And then, it's an internal issue of being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And it's an internal issue of, do I really want to disclose how I'm feeling? Mm. Because sometimes, especially when you're in the limelight, mm-hmm. especially being a celebrity, mm-hmm. people feel that you're supposed to always have great days. Yeah. People feel that you're supposed to always smile. Mm-hmm. Everything is going right. You mm-hmm. got all of this money. Everything should be right for mm-hmm. you. But in actuality, people like that are hurting as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's a vulnerability issue with that person. But then for the average person that's saying, how are you? Mm-hmm. Do we really expect for them to really engage into that? Or do we take the moment to say, well, tell me, how are you? Mm-hmm. Really, how are you? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you feeling? What are your emotions right now?
I think a lot of times it's not even what people are expecting. I think a lot of times, being at whatever level of success you may be, I know I self-impose some of those things. It's like, even if I'm not feeling my best, or even if I'm having a down day or having anxiety or whatever, I feel like to myself, if I go through and just say I'm good, sometimes I feel like some people think you can will yourself out of certain things. Right. And in all actuality, it's power in going through the process of that feeling, instead of just saying, okay, I'm good. No, I'm not good. And today, I'm actually worried. Today, I'm suffering with a little bit of anxiety. Today,
I'm stressed.
I'm stressed. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Being vulnerable, but having that safe ground, that safe zone to go through and have that conversation.
I was listening to a sermon. It was with the Potter's House with mm-hmm. T.D. Jakes, mm-hmm. and it was a lady. She spoke on the topic, "How are you?" Mm-hmm. And as we go through COVID, we traditionally know a few words. Mm-hmm. I'm doing good. I'm doing well. And so she challenged us, and I think this would be a great challenge for everyone, is to think about other synonyms mm-hmm. that describe how are you. Mm. Maybe we need to increase our vocabulary. Yeah. That's something that I feel like I want to do as well. Like mm-hmm. I want to, you can be excited. You could be anxious. Mm-hmm. You could be worried. Mm-hmm. You could be stressed. You could be full of rage. Mm-hmm. You can have regret. These are words that we could use as an adult to really kind of pinpoint the exact feeling of how are we. Exactly. And so I think that would be a great challenge for definitely for me, and then definitely for our audience today. But just think about something else. You don't say well and good all the time.
Exactly. Or blessed.
Especially or blessed. Oh Lord, the church will love highly favored. But just don't say all those things, especially if you're not. Because if you're not, pinpoint what it is that you're feeling.
But also it gives people an opportunity, because if you come in one day and say, man, hey, I'm really not doing well today. Hey, man, I'm suffering with this. It gives us an opportunity to go through and actually build upon that, build a deeper connection, deeper relationship. Because if you felt enough to go through and tell that, okay, you're not feeling well, that means you trust a little bit. Now it's time to go through and actually build upon that, because I think that's one thing a lot of times people suffer in silence. Right. It's because we ask, how are you doing? And we expect good. But allow people an opportunity to go through. If you're not doing well, express yourself. Allow people an opportunity to actually be in your corner, to go through and support as well, because that's so important. And people want to support.
Yeah. Stop giving those automatic responses. That's what it is. It's an automatic response. And so, yeah, I'm well, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm sad. Those are automatic responses, you know. And it's up to the person to realize, especially if you're not engaged.
Yes.
Be open.
Yeah.
Talk, communicate. You know, tell them, you know what, I'm upset because I didn't get that promotion.
Exactly.
On my job. Or I'm upset because I'm dealing with right now, I'm going through a divorce. You know, definitely talk about those issues because suicide is real.
It's very real.
It's real. You know, we even heard about Regina King's son, Ian Alexander. You know, he was another high celebrity or high profile individual that, you know, I'm quite sure he probably had everything in the world. You know, his mother was a very famous actress.
Yes.
One of my favorite actresses, actually,
very good.
to be exact, but had everything probably, you know, to him. But that feeling of maybe feeling not valued, or I don't know what is the feeling that he had or so, but he committed suicide. And as I looked up suicide rates, I want to give a few facts about that. Did you know 132 people die every year from suicide? Every day, 132 people die every day of suicide. And men have a higher rate. I think it's like 3 times more of a higher rate than a female to even die from suicide.
Wow. When I hear that statistics, I think about, first of all, how many people walked up to them and asked them how they were doing. I think about men, a lot of men, what we do is we internalize. I think men and women are totally different, like apples and oranges. Men go through and internalize because we try to go through and be the solution. We try to go through and problem solve. And a lot of times that just the gentle, how are you doing? A lot of times we may say good because we don't want to expose our vulnerabilities. We don't want to expose the weaknesses that we may have because, not saying the trust is not there, but we're taught as young boys and just young men to go through and man up and make it happen.
And keep our mask on.
Keep our mask on.
We're taught as men to that we can handle it. We can handle everything. It's for us to handle. Men don't cry. Men don't show emotions. So we were taught that. And so as a male now, it's time for us to reverse what we were taught.
Yeah.
So we have to unlearn some things to learn some new things.
Yes.
And so by learning new things, we have to uncover that mask.
Wow. We have to take the mask off.
We have to take that mask off, and we have to be vulnerable. We have to be vulnerable with our partners. We have to be vulnerable with our spouse.
Yeah.
We have to be vulnerable even with our colleagues when they say, how are you doing? Give the true answer.
Wow.
Give, how are you doing?
Hey you, yeah you, do you know of a disabled child who needs in-home care services? Hello everyone, I'm Kashonda Beasley, your GAP Care Coordinator for Athens, Georgia. I cover the surrounding counties, Clark, Walton, Morgan, Elberton, Jefferson, Pendergraft, Commerce, Oakwood, and Gainesville. I work and specialize with providing in-home pediatric care for disabled children in the comfort of their homes at zero cost. Yes, zero cost. So if you know of any disabled children, please give me a call at 478-387-9248. That number again is 478-387-9248. It's a great day to be a Georgia Bulldog. Go Bulldogs!
Every last person is connected, allowing that person to be a part of the solution, not the answer to it, because the answer is within, but a part of the solution, a part of the process of overcoming whatever you may be overcoming, because it's so important as we go through the journey. First of all, we can't go through it alone.
Right.
And if we're going around, we're in conversation, we're in relationship with people daily, we're in connection for a reason. Right. We're in connection for a reason. And again, just like you said, just like the young man that you just named, Ian Alexander, I know he had a community. I know he had people that loved him. Yes. I know he had people that cared for him.
Yes.
And I know sometimes you can feel like you're in some type of isolated situation where you're out there all alone because you're the only person that feels that way. But that is so far from the truth. There are other people that have went through that. And when a person asks, how are you doing? That person could be the person that actually went through it as well. And that person could be the one that actually be the answer to your prayers as well.
You know what? I think about this. I'm actually getting a little emotional because if we think about this, sometimes we think about life and we think about just the question of how are you. That it's a simple answer, but it's a simple question, but it's a powerful question. And we look at, especially as suicide, these are human lives.
They're human lives.
And so this life was so in a point where we don't know what they were feeling, but it's to a point where that question could have saved a life. And that's what I'm trying to say. That question could have saved a life. You know, I heard a story earlier today, especially when we're talking from a colleague, and this colleague was talking about a teacher that knew of a student, and this student made a decision to commit suicide and say, you know, because no one loved him. But he said this, he said that as he was walking to the Golden State Bridge in San Francisco, he said that he would not commit suicide if someone smiled to him on the way to the bridge or asked him how was he or how are you doing, because he would have opened up. And believe it or not, no one even smiled in this world, and no one even asked, how are you? Wow. And so that question, how are you, could have saved his life. Wow. And so I got a little emotional about that a few minutes ago, because a few seconds ago, because these are actual lives that possibly we could save if we just take the time to really kind of engage and be vulnerable as the person, but also be a great listener as the receiver.
Yeah. One thing, Caleb, from that conversation, I realized even putting the hat on as a business owner, sometimes we're in a fast-paced world where we're having to do this, and it's very rare to be able to slow down, to be engaged with one particular person. And we have so many missed opportunities. I know personally, I think about missed opportunities where I was able to go through and be there for a person that I may not have been there for, because I felt like at the moment, getting this answer, this was more important. But we are in the people business.
A task may be important than the person.
The task may be important than the person. And we are in the people business where it's people first, then the other things. And that's one thing, as we talk about this, how are you doing? This is the time for me to self-reflect on the situations and the relationships that I've built over in the past, to go through and realize that, you know what, when I ask that question, make it count. Don't just go through and use that question loosely to say, okay, well, check that off the box. I talked to this person today. No, if I'm gonna utter that question out, be willing to go through and actually spend the time to go through and actually unpack that with others if they need that as well.
I like that, Faris. I like what you just said. If you ask a question, be prepared to stay at least 10 to 15 minutes. To really get to the root of what the person may be dealing. You know, this morning, especially as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, Faris, I know we interact with so many colleagues on a day-to-day basis. And so I went into my morning huddle. So we do a morning huddle. Typically, our morning huddle starts off with our Gap department. Typically, it starts off with, asking how are you, and then we going straight into business. And so I knew that this was one of our topics that we were going to discuss today. And I said, you know what, I'm going to really engage. I'm going to stay there long. It may feel as if there's silence, there's awkward silence, but I really want the person to understand, how are you? And then I asked another posing question is, well, what does good look like to you? What does well look like to you? And then they begin to open up. And they, one said, they had a relaxing weekend. They didn't do anything. They spent time with family. Another said, well, it's cold out there, so I want to just stay in. Just we had more interaction, more communication. And that's one thing I think, especially as entrepreneurs, especially if you're doing morning huddles or you meet with people, take that time to really to ask, how are you? And then ask them, especially if you don't know them, ask them, what does that look like to you?
I think that's powerful. It's deepening the relationship, because in life, you can't go through life alone. And a lot of times those individuals that result to suicide or extreme depression, it's a lonely feeling. It's a lonely feeling, and thinking that the only solution is X, Y, and Z, is suicide, is whatever, medicating, is this, that, and other. Realizing that we have a community. Now it's the time to get involved in the community. It's the active involvement within community to go through and actually allow it to be the process that leans toward an ultimate solution for our lives to become better as well. So, Caleb, this topic right here, one takeaway that I take away is, again, having more meaningful conversations. And then when I ask the question, be willing to go through and actually stay the course to actually get the results, not only for myself, but for others as well, who I engage with this question, man.
You know what, Faris? I think one of my takeaways and one of my prayers is that we as a society don't be too in a rush that we miss opportunities to save people's lives.
Wow.
And I think that the former Miss USA life could have been saved as well as Ian's life if the community around them could have slowed down and really saw signs or really say, you know what, let's really talk about this. Let's talk about what's going on. How are you? How are you? How are you is one of the most powerful questions you can have, especially each day, because that's a question you ask daily.
Yeah.
That's not a question that lasts for the whole month. You know, oh, well, you know, you one of the questions that you probably ask for the month, well, how are you in that process of your real estate? Well, I'm going to buy my piece of property in April. So you don't have to ask that over and over. But every day there's so many emotions.
Yes.
There's so many balance. And, you know, and then another question is, after that, how are you? Then another question probably be, how is your emotional health?
Wow.
That's another powerful question.
That is a powerful
How is your emotional health? Because those are questions every day we deal with issues. You deal with a divorce. You deal with health issues. You deal with a new diagnosis. You deal with a financial despair. You deal with all of these things. And so asking that person on a day-to-day basis, how are you, is so important. And so like this has been a powerful episode, Faris, just asking that.
Exactly. So in closing, we're going to ask you, how are you?
Yes.
Go through, ask yourself, how were you doing? And if for some reason you're not at your best today, be willing to go through and actually talk to someone. Be willing to go through and actually call that friend up, call that confidant up, call that trusting person up to go through or drop us an inbox. Go through and talk to someone to go through and actually start the conversation, because again, you are important. The things that you're doing, everyone doesn't run the same race. Everyone doesn't cross the finish line at the same time, but you're running your race. You have an opportunity to go through and impact other people's lives just like we're doing as well. So when we ask you, how are you doing? We're genuinely concerned with how are you doing? And we hope that you take this conversation on to the next person to be genuinely concerned with how they're doing as well. So with that being said, we're going to go through, first of all, we thank you so much for tuning into this great episode. Caleb, tell them how they can go through and actually follow us and the things like that.
Definitely. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely follow us. Go to Spotify. Download the Spotify app right now. Download it. Type in Conversations with the Homecare Guyz and click follow. There you will be notified whenever we have our weekly episodes, which we come out with new episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Follow us on Facebook as well as YouTube. You can watch our video format of our podcast on YouTube. And so definitely hit that subscribe button. We'll definitely appreciate it.
Exactly.
And definitely like and share on social media platforms.
Please.
All platforms.
All right, there you have it. This has been another great episode of Conversation with the Homecare Guyz. Remember to tune in each Tuesday and Thursday on all of the channels as well. And we look forward to continue to providing you great content.
Stay safe.